All right, welcome back here to a Monday edition of the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet. Remember to check out our friends over at Johnson Spillers. If you need any dental needs during these summer days, whether it's pediatric or general dentistry, stop in and see our friends over at Johnson Spillers. Easy to find them online, johnsonspillers.com, and great social media. You can find them on Facebook. Location in Gonzales on Prepara Avenue, and then in Baton Rouge on Perkins Road, in between Segan Lane and Bluebonnet. Let's go down to New Orleans. Katie and I were in meetings last week in New Orleans. We stopped in to grab some lunch, and it was a hot, sunny day, and for whatever reason, the place went completely shaded as Glen West walked through the doorway and blocked the entire sun with his 6'10" frame as he walked into the galley, one of the great secrets of Old Metairie. It was good to see a good friend down there in Glen West. Glenn, good morning. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, guys. I've been going to that restaurant since, well, before I could fit through the door without ducking. So,
that was my first time.
Yeah.
It was excellent.
Definitely a good family spot that we go to quite often with my family.
Maybe the best boiled seafood in South Louisiana.
I think so. I do. I really can't pull away.
Glenn, let's go back to early last week or late last week. Arch Manning shut down the recruiting process. What did you make of him choosing Texas?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just another kind of dent in the legacy of the Manning family in terms of just guys wanting to build their own legacy. I mean, you saw it with Peyton going to Tennessee, wanting to do a little something different from what his family had done. And, I think so much of this is just about, recruiting relationships. And obviously we heard really from Arch's sophomore season when he started really kind of diving into it that he had a really tight relationship with Sarkisian, who was then at, I think, Alabama, and now he's obviously at Texas. And just from that first Zoom call that they had, we heard a lot of really good things about just the relationship that they've had. And obviously since, they've met multiple times. Obviously Arch has been on campus multiple times in Austin, and it's a great family town. It's a great town to go to in terms of playing your college ball. And so it really seemed like it had kind of gotten down to Texas and Georgia in the last several months, and I think it was obviously a tough decision. We got to talk a little bit with the Mannings and on Friday about the decision, which was really interesting from Cooper and Eli's and Peyton's perspective. Obviously, Peyton talked about his recruitment and how he committed at a bar to Tennessee. He was at a local bar in New Orleans and committed to Tennessee. And
is it Fat Harry's? Fat Harry's?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think he said Fat Harry's. Yeah. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was. And he just talked about how Arch did it the right way. Apparently, right before he committed, he called all of the coaches that he was not going to be committing to. First class. In terms of just saying, hey, thanks for recruiting me and all that good stuff. But I'm heading to Texas, and just doing it the right way, which is what you'd expect out of a Manning.
At that same Manning Passing Academy, we got some first B-roll, and we'll talk more recruiting, but your thoughts on KeShawn Boyd, the first that we've seen of him moving around a little bit after reports a couple of weeks back that he was 100%.
Yeah, he looks fantastic. I mean, he was out there with Kyron Lacey. You saw a couple of the quarterbacks tossing him some throws, and, very interesting. I mean, we'd heard really kind of all offseason how, KeShawn was rehabbing at first away from the team and kind of not as involved, and obviously I think those comments from Coach Kelly really kind of got the ball rolling on building out that relationship. And I do think that he looked like the star receiver that I think you're expecting to see from him this fall, and was cutting great. It was only a 13 or 14 second video, but they spent I think several hours out there in Thibodaux, connecting with Miles, and Miles was out there with all the other quarterbacks. So, look, I mean, you're going to need KeShawn this year. If you're going to have a successful first year under Brian Kelly, you're going to need him to be that 9 touchdown guy through 6 games that you saw last year. And I think that obviously these next few weeks are going to be about building up that rapport with not only Brennan but with Nussmeier and Jaden Daniels, and trying to get that connection and the rhythm of their route timing down. So. going to be an important next several weeks, even if it's not something that you see a lot of in terms of on social media or out on the practice field. Those guys are going to be hard at work for sure.
Big Glen West is on Twitter at GlenWest21. Make sure to follow him there. He's now over at 247 Sports covering. All right, a big one fell over the weekend in recruiting. A quarterback announced Jaden Rashada chose Miami. What does that mean for LSU's quarterback room and recruitment?
Yeah, so I think you're left with a couple options here. Obviously, Dante Moore, out of California, up north is a big option for him. I think that it really looks like right now Oregon is right there in the mix. But LSU's going to keep pushing. Moore was on campus at Oregon, I think this last week, and he was at LSU's campus back in April, and so there's going to be a lot of work to be done. I think the fact that he hasn't set a commitment date yet, could mean a lot of things. It could mean he's really waiting until the fall to make his decision, which is good for LSU. But at the same time, a lot of these kids just want to get it out of the way, so he could drop it at any time. So if he was going to be making a decision within the next week, I would probably say Oregon. Our guy Will Fong over at 24/7 has a crystal ball in on him for Oregon. So he's kind of the big blue chip guy that's still out there that LSU's pursuing. Another couple of guys, Ricky Collins, the local Woodlawn quarterback here, currently a Purdue commit. We got to see him in a 7-on-7 tournament here at LSU a couple weeks ago, and he looked really good. I do think LSU's going to kind of put the pressure up, dial up the pressure on him now that Rashad is out of the mix, and it'll be very interesting to see. They also just offered a guy, Brock Glenn. We need another Glenn here in the program, so that would be really cool. 2023 guy, and he's getting a lot of interest as well from some big schools. So they just offered him, so they're probably going to need a little while to recruit him. So don't have much intel on him, but those are just a few guys that are in the mix. But I kind of go back to if you don't land a big blue chip quarterback in this class, I think you're still in really good shape. You got Nussmeier here for another couple of years, obviously Walker Howard. So you're still able to, build for the future with next year's class and still feel good about what you have in the present.
LSU had 3 official visitors on the offensive line this weekend, including TJ Shanahan. How did it go? What were the 3 names, and what was the latest with Brad Davis's group?
Yeah, so Shanahan was on board. I think they recently welcomed Zalance Hurd, who was a big-time 100 player. He camped for them last week, so he's a guy that LSU is really pursuing, heavily. I do think that LSU is in a really good spot with a lot of these guys. I think you really have to build up that offensive line. They also had a guy, Paul Mbenga, who I can't. It's a tough name to get, but Chase Basantis as well as another name that was on there. Just a couple guys are kicking the tires on. And look, I think offensive line, you're going to have to go offensive line heavy with this group. I mean, you want to feel good about your future with that position group. And right now LSU's got a lot of transfers in there. They've got a lot of kind of guys that are getting into that junior senior range who have been here a few years now. So you want to make sure that you're backing up Will Campbell and Miles Frazier and a lot of those kind of new young guys with some really talented players. And I do think they're going to be putting full court press on a lot of these guys. And with only I don't think they even have an offensive line commit right now. They might have one, but they're also going after Tyree Adams, the local kid. And so there's a lot of guys they're pursuing on the offensive line. And I think the big one, though, is going to be Zalance Hurd. They really like him, and I think they're hoping to get him in with a commitment. But, we'll see. It's going to be very interesting, though, to see just kind of how the O-line shakes out. But definitely they're going to go O-line heavy, I think, with this recruiting class.
One thing that we have seen is the defensive line group. Jamar Cain has had a national reach here over the last couple of weeks. What is the latest on that group that he has been heading towards, including Jackson Howard, who I know is out of Minnesota, that LSU is kind of waiting to see what his choice is going to be?
Yeah, so Jackson Howard's a big-time player. They had him on. They had him on campus this month, and from what I can tell, he's really interested. LSU's right in a really good position with him, with Jamar Cain. He's done a tremendous job. There's a guy, Duran Reed out of Georgia, who is also making a commitment here on the 4th. Those two guys are both announcing this week, so you're going to get a really good picture, I think, of just kind of what this 2023 defensive line class looks like, just in terms of guys who could or could not be coming this week. They're pursuing a number of different guys. I do know that that they feel really good about Howard, and he was on Miami's campus recently as well. But Jamar Cain has done a really nice job of just kind of settling things down as a new coach. I mean, this is what you kind of want out of your position coaches, is guys to settle down, build those relationships early, and often, and as often as you can. And so, I do think a lot of the kind of the focus has been on the secondary early in this class, with the two safeties and the cornerback. But defensive line, you're going to have to start rebuilding eventually with Ali Gay, and obviously Ojulari is going to be draft eligible this year. So you got some good young talent on there, but you want to keep beefing it up. So I think that's going to be a huge key for LSU.
We saw star wideout Shelton Sampson come through Baton Rouge over the last couple of weeks. It seems like the intensity around his recruitment has picked up, especially here in his hometown. What is the latest on the 5-star wide receiver out of Catholic High?
Yeah, he's obviously taking visits. He's visiting campuses. I do think he's done a nice job of just being able to visit a bunch of places. I think LSU is obviously very high on him. They really want him. He's a blue chip guy who's obviously very highly regarded. Alabama obviously still very much in the mix there. But yeah, I mean, look, he's a local guy, and I think the thing of this class so far that you've seen is they've really done a nice job of going out of state. But I think they also have to be pretty careful of trying to get those blue chip in-state guys as well. And Sampson's right there at the top of the list in terms of guys that you'd expect LSU to want. And so I don't know that he was on a campus. I think he was on a campus at Alabama on the 17th. He was visiting Florida State early this month as well. Not exactly sure where he was this last week, but he's doing he's making the rounds this summer, which is what a lot of guys are doing right now.
Another one out of Baton Rouge is Caleb Jackson, the running back out of Liberty, who seems like his recruitment is really picking up from LSU's standpoint. I know he was in College Station 2 weeks ago. What is the latest on where LSU stands with him?
Yeah, I mean, they're still pursuing him. Obviously, when you got Frank Wilson there in that room, that's going to be a good thing for you. Obviously, Texas A&M right there in the mix as well. But I think LSU feels good. Obviously, you got a guy in Trey Holly in this class already, who was a pretty early commit for LSU, which I think bodes well for the Tigers in terms of just getting that track record back with these elite local running backs. In terms of Jackson, I'm not entirely sure where he was. I think he was on Alabama's campus this last weekend and taking a visit. And so, he's very much like Sampson, just kind of making the rounds and, doing a lot of, the visits that you would expect at this time of year. But LSU certainly feels good about their running back spot. I think they've got some really great young talent already in the room, but obviously you want to continue to build for the future. And Holly was a great start, and obviously Jackson would be a tremendous addition for this class as well.
All right, Glenn, tell them where you are now, man. I know you just made a move here over the last couple of weeks. You're over at Go247. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so you guys can follow us at Go247. We're kind of making that transition right now. I'm at Glen West 21 on Twitter, and it's been a hectic last weekend. I heard you guys talking about baseball for a little bit, and that's certainly something right up my alley, and certainly something I love talking about. So. It's been a very hectic weekend, but we're pushing through and doing a lot of great stuff over at Go247. So really appreciate it.
Glenn, let's wrap up there. What were your thoughts on Jay Johnson's weekend? How big was the weekend for Johnson? What he's trying to accomplish?
Huge. I mean, it was just an absolutely tremendous weekend for this program, for the future of this program. Obviously, getting two guys in White and Little who are going to be foundational pieces for that program next season. In White's case, he's got 2 years of eligibility left as well, which is really good for LSU in terms of, kind of getting a transfer in here who will stick around a little while. And obviously has the offensive pedigree that's really unmatched across the country, or unmatched by very few, I should say, across the country. So that power lineup of Cruz and Morgan and now Tommy Tanks is what they call him. So that'll be very interesting to come at Alex Box next year. But what I came away with was just super impressed with the pitching coach hire. I mean, to get a guy in Wes Johnson out of the MLB. I mean, we were talking about just some of the top college pitching coaches coming to LSU. And, I tweeted it out last night. Jay Johnson essentially just said, hold my beer. I'm going to go get one of the top major league guys. So, it's a really cool, really amazing addition to get one of the top guys from the MLB in here. He's obviously got some SEC experience with Arkansas and Mississippi State. Before he took the Twins job, he's been there for about 4 years. And so I think that just makes it all the more enticing for, a freshman recruit, for a transfer portal prospect. You see an MLB pitching coach in college. It's gonna roll some eyes, I think, and it's gonna get some guys' attention. And so I think this is a tremendous weekend for the future of that program. And I think they're up.
Glenn, I know there's no way to know where Jay Johnson's going to go next as far as replacing Fitzgerald. But do you think that Noah Cain is a possibility?
I'm not sure. I think Nolan is very happy at A&M. Just talking with a guy who really knows Nolan well. I think he feels very comfortable in Texas A&M. Obviously, they just made a great run of their own in the postseason. Never say never. I think what you really want out of this hire is a guy who's good at recruiting and good on defense, and I think that's the kind of the mold that you're looking for in terms of Fitzgerald replacement. And there are a number of guys that have been thrown around, but nothing's really concrete yet, and we'll see what happens. But I do think Nolan would be a nice option to bring back if that's the direction Jay wants to go. And we'll certainly see, kind of in the next, I would assume next week or two, just in terms of wanting to fill out the staff, what he wants to do. He can only really fill one more full-time position. So that's obviously going to be the Fitzgerald job. So be interesting to see. We'll be in touch, though. We'll be keeping in tune.
At Glen West 21 on Twitter, over at Go247 now. Big Glen West. Go follow him there and read all of his work. We'll be touching base soon again. Thank you, man.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Remember, daily, we are brought to you by Dead Soxy. There is a promo code over there that Katie can tell you about, deadsoxy.com. But you can always take, is it 35% off?
It's